Ecuador's constitutional court has ruled in favour of the decriminalization of abortion for victims of rape. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov received his Mexican counterpart Marcelo Ebrard in Moscow this Wednesday. President of Somalia, Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed, has called for elections as tensions escalate in the country. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. Ecuador's constitutional court has ruled in favour of the decriminalization of abortion for victims of rape. With 7 votes in favour and 2 against, the court ruled in favour of a lawsuit filed in July 2019 by women's rights organisations, arguing that Articles 149 and 150 of the Criminal Code should be declared unconstitutional. The articles, which will now be abolished, establish that abortion in Ecuador is illegal except when performed in the case of a threat to the life of a pregnant woman or when the pregnancy is a result of the rape of a mentally disabled woman. The decision marks a historic victory for movements defending women's sexual and reproductive rights and challenging increasing gender violence in Ecuador. In Colombia, people have taken to the streets of the capital, Bogotá, as part of the national strike action called in rejection of the tax reform presented by the government of Ivan Duque. The controversial reform includes an increase in value-added tax, the establishment of urban road tolls, and the elimination of deductions and subsidies. The proposed reform has met stiff resistance in Congress, including from a coalition of parties that supports President Ivan Duque's government. Opponents stress the changes would unnecessarily burden taxpayers who are already stretched by the economic crisis caused by the coronavirus pandemic. Trade unions mobilised to protest the reform, as well as other government policies, demanding that the legislator analyse the proposal, which they argue violates the rights of Colombians and favours corruption and tax evasion. And Colombia's notorious anti-riot squadron mobilised to disperse demonstrators in the capital. The repressive acts left at least 1 person injured as the squadron launched tear gas at those rallying. Since the early hours of the morning, citizens have taken to the streets of Bogotá as part of the national strike action called by the National Strike Committee for life, peace, democracy and against the president's proposed tax reform. On Tuesday, a Bogotá court granted the request of far-right President Ivan Duque to suspend permissions for anti-government protests on Wednesday and Labour Day celebrations on May 1st. However, the strike organisers stressed they would maintain the mobilisation. Chilean President Sebastián Piñera has enacted the law that allows a third early withdrawal of 10% from private pension funds after the Constitutional Court rejected his attempt to block the bill supported by Congress. The court rejected the president's claim that the bill was unconstitutional, with 7 votes in favour of the bill and 3 against. The pension system in Chile has been completely privatised ever since the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet. Piñera had moved to present an alternative bill, which would include the state injecting fresh money into the private pension system. However, the original bill was widely supported both by the population and Congress, including by supporters of the president. The early pension withdrawals for Chileans have been approved as a means to alleviate the financial hardships faced by the population in the midst of the economic crisis aggravated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Uruguayan school transport owners protested in front of the presidential palace on Tuesday to demand tax exemptions and more government credits for their business, which has been paralysed by school closures and distance learning implemented in the country due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Vehicles are parked and we have nothing to eat. We have nothing to eat. We don't have any way to pay. So if the government doesn't help us, school transportation dies.
We need a small solution. Something. If not, we don't have how to pay. Simple.
In the United States, a judge has ruled that body camera footage showing the moments when African-American Andrew Brown Jr. was shot and killed by police will not be released to the public at this time. The judge said he would reconsider a public release in the next 30 to 45 days, and some of the footage can be disclosed to certain members of Brown's family, but for now it will not be released to the public to protect an active internal and criminal investigation or potential internal criminal investigation. Andrew Brown Jr. was shot 5 times by police, including in the back of the neck, as he tried to drive away from several police officers in what his family described as an execution, demanding that all body camera video be released. The FBI has opened a federal civil rights investigation into Brown's death, while officials in Elizabeth City, whose population is nearly 20,000, declared a state of emergency and ordered a curfew in anticipation of possible protests over the latest killing of an African American at the hands of the police. On Wednesday, the European Parliament overwhelmingly voted to ratify the trade deal between the United Kingdom and the European Union, as members of the Parliament branded Brexit a historic mistake. The Trade and Cooperation Agreement, which has been in provisional effect since January, will come into force next month. The agreement was approved with 660 votes in favour to 5 against and 32 abstentions, representing the final political hurdle facing the accord. MEPs had been holding up ratification amid concerns that the UK was not implementing its side of the Brexit settlement on Northern Ireland, repeatedly refusing to set a date for a vote. If the agreement had not passed, the UK and EU's terms of trade would have degraded even further, with rates and quotas applicable on goods. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen welcomed the deal's approval, but stated that faithful implementation is essential. And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Counterpart Marcelo Ebrard in Moscow this Wednesday. The visit, that will conclude on Thursday, includes discussions on the diversification of bilateral economic, trade and investment relations. Regarding the fight against the coronavirus pandemic, the foreign ministers will discuss the possibility of Mexico producing the Sputnik V vaccine domestically. The Russian Foreign Ministry also announced that the visit will reinforce the nation's ties with regional integration associations, including the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States. And during his visit to Moscow, Mexican Foreign Minister Marcelo Ebrard noted that his country is willing to participate in the final process of the manufacture of the Sputnik V vaccine against COVID-19.
Determination, the will, and we have found a willingness for the Mexican company Birmex to participate in the final packaging and filling of the Sputnik V vaccine.
Russia has ordered a total of 7 diplomats from Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania and Slovakia to leave the country in response to their government's expulsions of Russian diplomats. Based on the principle of reciprocity, the Russian Foreign Ministry demanded that 2 staff of the Lithuanian embassy, 3 of the Slovakian embassy, as well as 1 at the Latvian and another at the Estonian diplomatic mission, leave the territory of Russia within 7 days. Last week, Slovakia expelled 3 Russian diplomats, echoing the Czechs, while Lithuania also expelled 2 Russian diplomats, and Estonia and Latvia each ordered 1 Russian embassy employee out. While announcing the retaliatory moves, the Russian Foreign Ministry denounced the 3 Baltic nations for taking what it described as an openly hostile course against Moscow. It was also noted that Slovakia's expulsions had hurt the traditionally friendly relations between the 2 countries. In the Netherlands, the eastern city of Arnhem saw a large protest on Tuesday to demonstrate against the government and lockdown measures. City officials urged people to stay away from the area as the protesters marched through the city chanting slogans like "We are the Netherlands" and "Love freedom, no dictatorship." According to the reports, the demonstration remained peaceful and was monitored by a large police presence, which ended with organisers thanking officers and the city's mayor. The British Indian diaspora is fundraising through the London-based Hindu Council UK, an umbrella group of different charities and Hindu organisations around the country, to raise funds to help virus-stricken India.
We had reached over £100,000 of donations, which we transferred quickly to India and got translated into medical provisions, non-medical provisions, therapeutics. So people, in India, were able to benefit from the donations of the British Asians. Yes, the funds that we are raising here in the UK at the Neeson Temple is going towards provisions like providing, equipment, beds, and materials for oxygen, also providing food for the frontline workers, as well as the patients and their family.
The director of the Pan American Health Organization has urged countries with extra doses of COVID-19 vaccines to donate them to Latin American nations, which are suffering from a surge in cases and limited vaccine supplies.
The region has demonstrated that it can successfully distribute COVID vaccines quickly and effectively. Yet supplies are still far behind what is this region's urgent need for more doses. And that's why we want again to urge countries with extra doses to consider donating a significant portion of these to the Americas, where these life-saving doses are desperately needed and will be promptly used.
And the Assistant Director of the Pan American Health Organization explained that the interruption in the supply of the AstraZeneca vaccine from India will impact not only the target countries for those doses, but the whole region.
Quite a significant impact, because we have 3 countries in the region that receive AstraZeneca vaccine from India, which are Bolivia, Haiti and Nicaragua. But with the interruption in India, which so far has not resulted in a decision to reship vaccines, all other countries may also suffer a significant reduction in vaccine supply, because AstraZeneca vaccines from other producers will be shared by all.
In Germany, COVID-19 has dealt yet another blow to the sports industry as the government adopts stricter measures to curb a third wave of infections. According to the president of the German Olympic Committee, the country's sports clubs have lost nearly 1 million members to the coronavirus pandemic. The restrictions have impacted both amateur and professional athletes for months, as no games or sports training have been possible since the beginning of November. Meanwhile, around 90,000 sports clubs throughout the country remain closed. Following the amended version of the Infection Protection Act, professional and elite athletes competing for national teams may continue to train and participate in competitions, still without an audience and in compliance with protective and hygiene measures. In Japan, Government Minister Kazuhiro Sugiti stated on Wednesday that COVID countermeasures are still the biggest obstacle to holding the 2021 Tokyo Summer Olympics. The Japanese government is reviewing studies on countermeasures as athletes and tournament officials arrive in the country. Local organisers and the International Olympic Committee have pushed ahead with plans to open the postponed Tokyo Olympics in just under 3 months. Meanwhile, the death toll in Japan from COVID-19 reached 10,000, which is disturbing compared to other places in Asia such as Taiwan, Vietnam, Thailand or South Korea. New restrictions were recently implemented in Tokyo and other parts of the country in the face of rising case numbers. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. On Wednesday, the President of Somalia, Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed, called for elections, announcing he would ask Parliament for its approval this Saturday. Government allies requested the President issue an urgent call for elections and avoid delays in the process after large and violent protests in the capital, Mogadishu, as well as other regions of the country. Tensions have escalated since February 8th, when Abdullahi's presidential term ended without the mandatory subsequent elections. Clashes between armed groups have been reported. At least 7 people were killed and more than 11 others wounded when a vehicle exploded outside a police headquarters in the Somalian capital, authorities stated on Wednesday. A doctor at the local hospital said they had received 13 wounded people, 2 of whom died on arrival. The Al-Shabaab extremist group claimed responsibility for the attack. The group often targets high-profile areas of the capital, and observers had warned that it could take advantage of Somalia's current political tensions to strike again. On Wednesday, Indonesian police smashed a drug smuggling gang that moved 2.5 tons of meth into the country from Afghanistan. In a series of police raids in the capital, Jakarta, in recent weeks, 17 suspects were arrested on drug offences. Some were condemned to the death penalty for trafficking under Indonesia's tough drug laws. According to police, some of the methamphetamine had been placed inside food containers and then hidden in boats or lockers on land. The Southeast Asian archipelago has become a key destination and transit point for international drug trafficking.
We managed to uncover the smuggling of crystal methamphetamine from the Middle East amounting to 2.5 tons and arrested 18 suspects. Suspects with initials NK, KW, AG, K, and RI, and AL are convicts with sentences of 10-year imprisonment and death. However, they still could control the international drug network.
Syria's parliament met this Wednesday to finalise the process of offering support to the 51 nominees for candidates to next month's presidential election. Parliament Speaker Hamadou Sabag closed and sealed the box containing handwritten support from members of the People's Assembly in front of national media outlets. The Syrian elections law stipulates that in order to run for the post of president, an applicant must obtain written support from at least 35 members of parliament. The May 26 election will be the second to be held since the start of the 10-year Western-imposed terrorist war in the country. Current President Bashar al-Assad is standing for a fourth term. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Xiao Lishan said Wednesday that China welcomes objective and fair voices from the international community on Xinjiang-related issues. The statements came after Singapore's Chinese-language newspaper published a report highlighting that claims of forced labour in the northwestern Chinese region are completely baseless.
I've also taken note of the report. The author is an education consultant with more than a decade-long experience working and living in Xinjiang. He said that the groundless allegation of forced labor in Xinjiang is not only absurd, but also exposes the ignorance of those behind it. During the cotton picking season, workers seeking employment from inland provinces in China would travel to Xinjiang to meet the shortfall of laborers and help the cotton growers bring in the harvest. In return, the workers get generous remunerations. As you can see, this is a win-win. Besides, with the development and wide application of agricultural machinery, manual labor is being replaced more and more by alleging forced cotton picking by minorities. Certain people are defilling the speckless cotton in Xinjiang and maligning the socio-economic progress in the region.
Japan's parliament approved the country's integration to the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, signed by 16 countries in the Asia-Pacific region. The agreement includes the 10 member countries of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, together with China, Japan, South Korea, Australia and New Zealand, and is considered the largest free trade agreement in the world. It covers an area with around 2.2 billion consumers and approximately 30% of global gross domestic product, representing around $26.2 trillion. The signatories hope that the free trade bloc will be a boost for pandemic-hit economies across the region by progressively phasing out 90% of the tariffs on imports between signatories, as well as organising multi-country supply chains and codifying new e-commerce rules. While diplomatic attempts of rapprochement between the US and Iran continue in Vienna, tensions are rising in the Persian Gulf. On Tuesday, the Pentagon stated that 2 of its ships fired warning shots in the face of an alleged approach by Iranian ships. Regarding the military manoeuvre, Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Bakir Kaliraf said that the presence of foreign troops in the region, led by the United States, disrupts security and destroys regional economic opportunities, creating a gap between the south and the north of the Persian Gulf. The US alleged that after multiple communication attempts and radio warnings, the crew of the Firebolt ship fired warning shots at the Iranian Navy ships. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa testified this Wednesday before the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture over allegations of corruption during the administration of former President Jacob Zuma. Ramaphosa faced questions about the role of the African National Congress Party in corruption in government and state companies. The president told Judge Sondo that state capture took place under our watch, but limited culpability to a small circle, saying that the vast majority of ANC leaders, members and cadres are vehemently opposed to corruption in all its manifestations. Ramaphosa became president in 2018, succeeding Zuma, who was forced to step down due to accusations of abuse of power and constitutional duty known as state capture. The hearing will continue on Thursday, where President Ramaphosa is expected to explain the political funding for his 2017 presidential campaign. And we've come to the end of this news brief, but remember you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching.